Good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome to this special Asset Protection Masterclass with yours truly, and of course, one of our most trusted advisors, the king of corps, as we should maybe call him, somebody who's built a ton of businesses, but has also helped a tremendous amount of our clients, our affiliates, and our trusted relationships also protect them more what they earn and also keep a lot more than what they earn. Who are we talking about? We're talking the man, the myth, the most famous goat herder west of the Mississippi, our good buddy Aaron Young from Laughlin Associates. But what is going on, Aaron? How you doing today?
Good to be with you as always, Scott. I got to tell you, I'm a little sad because we sold all the goats. So I can't use the goat herder thing anymore. We still have about 30 horses. So I can still be the,
He's a recovering goat herder
or stall cleaner or whatever you want to call me. Although truthfully, I have not cleaned any stalls. So we have a nice staff that does that. But I'm delighted to be here because I know we're going to dive deep into some of these really critical things. And as we're going into this new year, and we're going to be, it's a strange year. 2024 is kind of a weird time because they say the economy is doing great, the stock market's doing great. I think people on the ground are having a hard time. It's an election year, so it's very curious what the government may, what little strings they may pull to try to enhance one side or the other or both. So it's an interesting time. We have this new beneficial ownership information that all companies are required to do. So I'm really glad we're going to do this to give your folks, the people that follow you, some very, very specifics, from the most foundational pieces to some complex things. And depending on where they are in their progress, they're either going to go, oh, I'm a brand new note investor, I'm just going to form my first LLC, or I've got a multi-million-dollar portfolio, I've got 10 LLCs and a holding company, a construction company. What do I do? We're going to cover how to deal with all of that in these next, it'll be over the next, 90 minutes or something.
Yeah, roughly. And that's the big thing, is one of the big things of it being new year, 2024. Everybody's always looking to do more. And I think, especially after what took place in 2023, with the average individual needing 10 to 11 grand more to put the necessities on the table, a lot of people are looking for side hustles. And obviously investing is a big thing, real estate investing or doing something. But the idea of 95% of Americans want to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, want to work for themselves. I think that passion has come across a lot more in the last couple of years of the side gigs and side hustles and stuff that's necessary out there. But there's some things that you got to do. Start with the basics, the foundation, and make sure that you're doing the right things. Because so many of us think we're just going to go down and start a business or a DBA, or go down to the Secretary of State and start something. And there's a lot of things that goes into doing the right things to make sure that you're not only structured properly, but set up properly and paying less to Uncle Sam so that you can actually take more at the end of the day. We'll cover a lot of that stuff today.
We're going to cover a lot of that. And I do want to set the stage a little bit more based on something you just said. There are a bunch of companies right now in the last year or 18 months that have come out, and they're all digital. Like, you can't talk to anybody, but they're super cheap. And one of my business partners, not in Laughlin, but in your people probably don't know because we don't really talk about it, but I own a number of businesses. Mm-hmm. So I own 50% of Laughlin along with Lee Morgan. He's been my business partner since 97. We've worked together a long time. We have another business partner that I work with who's friends with Mark Cuban. And we were talking about the resident agent company, the corporate formation company that Mark Cuban's involved with. And I said, I don't get what they're doing. Well, this guy had just gotten back from a vacation with Mark. And he goes, I'll tell you exactly what he's doing. They don't care at all about the entities. They're just data mining. They're gathering data so they can come after from a whole bunch of angles and sell you much more expensive things. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But for the vast majority of the about 23 million individuals who identified themselves as a business owner or self-employed on the last census, most of them don't want to be barraged with other sales, these advertisements and these being attacked to buy stuff. What they want to do is just what you said. They want to say, how can I keep more of the money that I'm earning? How do I protect what I've already got? And as I grow, like, how do I deal with that? Because growth is one of the hardest parts.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about what we've been doing for 53 years now at Laughlin is there's always somebody to talk to on the phone. There's always free consulting. There's always tons of webinars and white papers and events. Of course, you've spoken at many, many of those events.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way to have somebody help you.
Yep.
Instead of just making the guess. And I'll tell you what, I looked at one of these digital companies just yesterday, and just for fun, I just thought, I'm going to see what are they offering. And I went in and I realized very quickly that two things. One is, for everything that makes it a legit company, there's an upsell, 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 upsell. Whereas we just come in and say, look, this is what you actually need to be real. These are the several pieces that make you legitimate in the eyes of lenders, lawyers, IRS, and so on. The other thing is, I realized that when you give somebody an option of $0 or $99, and they're just getting started and money is tight, they're very often going to choose free or $99 or whatever it is. And the problem with it is, you think you bought something, but you didn't. All you did was get a name filed with the state. Nothing is legal. And so what we're going to show you today is why you do these things, why they matter, what the basics are to make a legitimate entity, or how, and then how to leverage those entities for tax strategy, tax reduction, tax deferral, asset protection, lawsuit protection. For some people, I remember one guy came to me and he said, I'm in love with this woman and we're going to get married, and I don't want to ask for a prenuptial agreement. He was a wealthy guy he was a Silicon Valley guy who's lived in Atherton, one of the most expensive places in the world to live. And he said, I don't want to do a prenuptial agreement. I do want to make sure that the business is separate from our marriage estate. I said, why is that? He said, well, I married forever once before, and it didn't work out. And I thought, okay, well, there's one way to look at going into a marriage. But anyway, so hopefully that sets the stage for people. We can get down to the brass tacks.
Let's dive into there and get rocking and rolling for everybody there.
And make sure it looks.
There we go. Just make it bigger.
Yeah, I'm just trying to click the slide button. How's that look?
Looking good there. Yes, so grow your profits, protect your assets.
All right, there's me with a button-up shirt and a jacket on. So I do know how to put on a coat and be a grown-up. There's something to go along with the gray beard. Okay, folks. So now, Scott, am I just presenting, or are you going to stop and ask me questions?
I'll throw in as asking questions along the way from our listeners and stuff like that as we're going through.
Oh, perfect. Love it. Okay. So we're going to call this Grow Your Profits, Protect Your Assets. And it doesn't really matter if you're just getting started or if you're quite successful. There will be things in this training that are going to matter to you. And there's going to be a free offer at the end where we're going to give you something that's pretty cool. And well, it's not pretty cool. It's freaking awesome, truthfully.
Yeah.
And this is all because we've done a lot of work with Scott and his organization over the years. And I'm delighted that he invited us to be part of this. So we're going to make it worth everybody's while that we're here. So what to expect? We're going to talk about laying the foundation, how to protect the assets that you're developing, some things that you can put in place structurally, corporate structurally, so that you can accelerate your wealth creation. And as you're able to protect all the things that you're building and you have a good strategy around it, it's easier to leverage your assets because they're safe so that you can take on greater opportunities. The big problem, if you're not well organized, the big problem is that you'll feel the insecurity and you won't take the same take opportunities like when the market all of a sudden shifts, right? And there's a buying moment. There's a window. It's going to close, but you have an opportunity. I went through that just in 2022. We were going to sell our farm, and the kids were kind of saying, "Dad, don't sell it." And my wife and her going, "We don't want to take care of all this acreage and all these animals." And it's when the goats were set, off to a new farm. And I started working on it, and I could see what was going on economically in the world. And I thought, we need to sell this sooner, because there's a little window. And we sold it within 1 week, but Scott, before we were closed, prices had already dropped $150,000, $200,000 on comparable properties. So we lucked out, but it was only because we were paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
It was only because we were paying attention, and I knew that I could take risks, because my whole world wasn't going to be impacted if something went wrong with this one transaction.
Right.
These are the reasons we get ready. So Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. The fact is, if you're going to build anything, we're in a real estate market here in this in Scott Carson's world, you want to have a solid foundation. Because I don't care how beautiful the palace is you want to build. If you build it on mud, if you build it on sand, it will start to lean and creak, and pretty soon you got the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And it may be interesting on postcards, but you don't want to live there, because everything keeps rolling to the lower side. So what we want to do is have a successful, solid foundation to build your business on. And business owners that are successful use corporations and LLCs to give them asset protection, which is really lawsuit protection, protect you from lawsuits. Remember, we are the most litigious country in the world. About 93% of all the world's lawsuits happen in the United States. 93%.
That's crazy.
I saw a thing in USA Today a few years ago that said, if you own a business, you have a 1 in 4 chance of being named in a lawsuit in the next 12 months. 1 in 4 chance. And I'll give you some more information as we go through. But the point is, lawsuit protection, asset protection is first. And you may say, well, I'm just getting started in my note business. I'm just getting started. I don't really have any wealth there yet. So then I always ask people, what do you have at your house? Do you own a home? Do you have equity in your home? Oh, you rent? What about furniture? What about antiques? What about paintings? What about the coin collection that your grandpa left to you? What do you have that you don't want to lose? Because when you go out there to engage with the public, there's a risk that's associated with that. And Scott and I can both tell you, after many years as business owners, it's not a matter of if you're going to get sued, it's when you're going to get sued.
Yep.
Because the more successful you are, the more people want to redistribute your assets to them. And so entities that are properly set up put up great big roadblocks. They usually will even stop a lawsuit before it starts, because most people that come after you on a frivolous lawsuit, I don't mean you committed fraud or something. I mean frivolous litigation, slip and fall, fell out of a window, a fender bender in a parking lot, frivolous litigation. They almost always get a lawyer that works on commission. And if the lawyer does an asset search and sees that all of your stuff is in entities and done properly, then they'll go, well, I'll represent you, but it's $650 an hour, instead of, we'll represent you and, we only get paid if you get paid. That all stops when you get this stuff set up. Mm-hmm. So asset protection, tax savings. Let me just tell you guys, the IRS said in 2023 that 93% of business owners are overpaying their taxes.
Cha-ching, cha-ching. That should be a number one.
93%. 93%. Everybody gripes about taxes, but yet business owners don't apparently really understand what their tax options are. So 93% of them, according to the Internal Revenue Service, are overpaying. Protection against creditors, that's what entities are. They're a separate paper person from you. They separate you and your estate from whatever the business project is. But again, if you don't do things properly and follow all the legal, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, then you won't get that benefit. And that's the problem with a free corporation, is that I promise you, you don't have all the pieces in place that show that the company is separate from you. Estate planning companies don't die. They get a new board of directors, they get new shareholders, get new employees, but they go on and on. Look at the Walt Disney Company, right? Walt's been gone since 1967, I think.
Yeah.
The Ford Motor Company, Henry Ford's been dead since the 40s or something. Guys, if you do this right, it creates a very powerful asset that can go multi-generationally forward, depending on how you built it up. And prestige and credibility. Basically, when you're just getting started, if you say, I'm president of this company, or I'm the managing member of this LLC, that may get you an appointment or get you in to see the right investor, get you into banks giving you their list of
notes.
assets.
Yeah.
All these things happen. The more legitimate you can present, the more opportunities will be granted to you. And so that's why we do it. So there it is. Now, what are the different structures or circumstances under which people do these things? So here are the four that almost everybody knows about: sole proprietorship, corporation, S Corp, and C Corp. Or the other way, C Corp, S Corp, and LLC. Sorry. Now, sole proprietorship, it is not an entity. It's just you. So Scott mentioned side hustles. If you just started making bracelets and selling them on Etsy, or building websites out for people on the side, or doing some coding, or flipping a house, or whatever, and you were just doing it as you, that would be considered a sole proprietorship. Let's be clear. A sole proprietorship, while it's not a separate entity, it's just you, a sole proprietorship could have 100 employees, could have 1,000 employees. It isn't about being by yourself. It's about it all roads lead back to you. There is no separate entity. Now, most people don't want that because of all the conditions I've already explained about, the tax benefits that come with entity ownership and the asset protection that comes from using proper entities. So sole proprietorship, cool. Many of you listening, if it was a side hustle, might be a sole prop right now. We're going to show you the reasons why maybe it's time to upgrade. Okay. Now, then there's corporations and LLCs. Corporations start out as a C corporation, almost all of them. There are exceptions. You could have a nonprofit, 501c3 registered. But if you're going out to make money, you're not going to have a nonprofit. You're going to use a corporation. A C Corp has a bunch of its own rules, which we'll go through in a minute. S Corps have different rules. And then limited liability companies, LLCs, super duper popular, and for good reasons when used in the right way. But the reason that we have C Corp, S Corp, LLC, as well as benefits corporations and nonprofit corporations and triple LCs and all kinds of other legal entities, the reason they exist is because they all have different rules. And because we're going to begin with the end in mind, we want to make sure that you're using the right tool for the job, which is why we're going to describe this stuff. So, okay. It's interesting. I didn't make my slides. Our marketing department did. So I'm like, I wonder why we started with LLCs when they were the bottom of the last list. That's right. What they're showing here is when you file an LLC with the state, what you get back from them is something called the Articles of Organization. Likewise, in a corporation, you get your Articles of Incorporation. Okay, and it just basically says you paid the state, and the state's going to protect the name. You picked a unique name, you paid a fee to your state, and they're going to acknowledge that you're setting up a company. They're going to give you a little number, not your tax ID number, but just a state associated number. And they're going to say, we will protect that name. Nobody else can have your name. That's all you did. You paid a fee. Now, I just want to put this in context in real estate. If I decide to build a house or remodel a house, and I go to the county and I pay a fee and I get permits, right? I've paid a fee and they say, Aaron, you're now permitted to put in that new bathroom or that new kitchen. Okay. We're going to give you the permits. So I've paid a fee and I have a permission slip, which is just what articles of organization or corporation are. But if I don't go and get a construction company and go buy a new sink and new tile and new backer board and all that stuff and go and then install it, because I had permission, if I don't go do the rest of the work, if I ignore the rest of the work and I just pay for the permit, do I have a new bathroom or do I not have a new bathroom? I don't. I don't have a kitchen. I just have permission. And that's what you get with a free corporation. You get a permission slip, but if you don't do the rest of the work, you don't end up with the result you wanted. The reason you paid for the permit, the reason you paid the fee. So when you go to the state and say, I'm going to set up an LLC or a corp, you pay a fee, they check to make sure the name's available, or you do it digitally, or you have us do it for you. And we do it, and here's your name, and the fees get paid to the state, and you get your articles of incorporation or your articles of incorporation or your articles of organization. Then they're done. And now if you got a zero company, a free company, it's a 0 plus state fees, that's all you get and you're done. Okay. With us, I'm just telling you, with Laughlin, we've been doing this for 53 years this year. We don't sell you more than you need or less than you need. All we do is give you the whole thing. In other words, if you're going to buy a car, I don't care if it's a Pinto or if it's a Maybach. You do want it to have an engine. You do want it to have a transmission. You do want it to have wheels and a drivetrain and a steering wheel, right? Whether or not it has all the bells and whistles and, burled, oak or whatever, who cares? You want something that is the complete thing you need to work. And that's all we're going to, at Laughlin, we only will do it that way. So you can do it some other way. I'm going to teach you the right way to do it. If you want to do it yourself, great. If you work with us, you'll only have one choice, which is it's going to be complete with no bells and whistles. If you want bells and whistles, it's a new conversation. But we'll make sure you've got the engine, the drivetrain, the wheels, the steering wheel, and you can start going. Okay. All right. So the next thing you need, which you don't get with a free corporation, is you get in a corporation, we call it bylaws. In an LLC, we call it operating agreement. Those are basically the rules that, in the eyes of the law, you decided, you as the board of directors got together and said, here's who we are, here's what we stand for, here's how we're going to behave, here's how people can buy shares, here's how people can sell shares, here's all the rules that we created, all the laws we created for this entity. That's what they call them, bylaws. And now, of course, nobody writes those. Lawyers write them. Really, a few big law firms have written bylaws, and almost everybody that's just got a privately held, what I call closely held, what people sometimes say derogatorily, mom and pop business, but it's just you or you and your spouse, you and your friend. Most of us just use boilerplate bylaws. Here's the thing, though. You still need them in your corporate record book, because if you're ever examined in a lawsuit or an audit, they want to see, did you treat this like a real entity, or did you treat it like an alter ego of yourself? Is it just another version of you, or do you really qualify for the protection and the tax benefits? Part of that identification, the first thing they see is, are there any bylaws, or does this LLC have an operating agreement? Without it, an auditor or a lawyer deposing you will go, clearly, this is the alter ego of this individual. It happens that quick. Mm-hmm. As they look at your book, that's the first thing they look at when you're being challenged. First thing they look at is your corporate minute book. They want to say, are you operating as a sole proprietor, or just you, or are you operating as a corporation or LLC? And one of the things that identifies that is, do you have bylaws, or if you're an LLC, do you have an operating agreement? Those are the rules that were designed for your specific company. You know what the lawyer will tell you? The lawyer, you're there being challenged in a deposition, and the lawyer will open the minute book and say, I see that you don't have any bylaws, or even worse, I see that you do have bylaws, And the bylaws says you'll have regular board meetings and keep minutes, but you have never done that. So you're breaking the laws of your own company. It's easy to assume you will break other laws, like the county laws, the state laws, the federal laws. So folks, having this simple document in your minute book makes a big difference. So you form the entity with the state. They give you articles of incorporation or of a organization. Other companies like us will also give you bylaws or an operating agreement. Within a corporation, you're set up like this. There are shareholders. Shareholders only have one job. Now, you may be 100% shareholder. You might be 50% shareholder. You might be 2% shareholder. Doesn't matter. Shareholders have a job, only one job, and that is to elect the board of directors. That's all the shareholder does, elect the board of directors. The board of directors gets together, and there has to be at least one member of the board. By the way, the person who is the single shareholder of a company can also be the single board member and can also be the officer, can be the president. In almost all companies, that's the deal. You own it, and you don't think you have a board of directors, but you do. It's you. And then you're also the president or the manager of the LLC. And then if you have employees, they go underneath. But this is the hierarchy. And when you're working as an employee, which can also be like president, you have certain responsibilities and certain boundaries that you need to stay within. Board of directors sets the direction of the company. Shareholders, all they do is elect the board. The board has all the power in the company. Remember how Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, got fired famously from Apple? Didn't matter how many shares he owned. He got fired by the board because the board has the right to do it. It's on a side note, don't just go, oh, I'm going to get a board of directors and get a bunch of people to work for me for free because I can't afford a CPA or a lawyer. No, they may fire you for being a bad operator.
Yep.
They have a fiduciary, a legal responsibility to look out for the company, not you. So be aware of that before you start bringing people onto your board. Scott, do you have a bunch of people on your board, or do you keep it close to your vest?
Keep it close to the vest.
Yep, me too. I do everything I can to limit the size of the board because the board has legal responsibility for one thing and has authority on the other hand. So be mindful of that. So this is how a structure is set up. In an LLC, it's similar. There's members. They're the owners, the ones that have membership. So instead of shares, like you have in a corp, you have membership in an LLC. So there's members. Somebody becomes the manager, the president effectively. And that can be a member, can be the president. I'm saying president because it's easier. Right. The legal term is manager. So a member can manage the company, or you can hire somebody to be a professional manager. So they don't have any ownership, but they've been hired to because they're a good manager. You put them in charge. Below that, you can have other officers, VP of sales, VP of whatever, and then employees. Okay. So remember, LLCs can be member managed or manager managed. And then beyond that, it's similar to what you're used to thinking about. I love this quote. The success of the entity is largely dependent on how you operate and meet the required laws. Remember, all 50 states have their own rules. So because you're in Texas and then you go up to Oklahoma or over to Louisiana or something, you go, well, I only went an hour. How different can it be? Well, the laws are different. I freaking guarantee you the laws in California and the laws in the next door neighbor, Nevada, wildly different, folks. Yep. It's this is freedom versus bureaucracy run amok. Wherever you're from, I'm not going to say who is who, but I happen to live along the I-5 corridor in Oregon, Washington, California. It is a socialist nation here. Yep. As soon as you go over to Idaho, Utah, Nevada, Wyoming, Montana, North, South Dakota, it just frees up. And the states want to encourage you to be successful versus putting all kinds of rules on you. But the point is, wherever you are, And wherever you're running the business, you need to know the rules of engagement in that jurisdiction and know how to follow them. Because when you follow them, the law will protect you. But if you ignore them and go, well, I was just so busy being busy, I didn't have time to hire a lawyer or learn all these things. You've heard the expression, ignorance is no excuse in the law. Well, I'm telling you, folks, I'm teaching you right now, pay attention, ask some questions. When you work with professional operations like our company, like Laughlin, that's got a A+ Better Business Bureau after 53 years in business, hundreds of thousands of clients, we're doing something well. And what it is we stay in our lane and we take great care of our clients. And our clients are educated, so they are making wise choices and doing wise things. The reason you're working with Scott Carson is because Scott knows his industry inside and out, and he will point you in the right direction and tell you where the pitfalls are. If you try to wing it, it's a funny thing. There's the trail up Mount Everest is littered with corpses of people who thought they didn't need to hire the Sherpas. Okay? The people who've been up and down that mountain for generations. No, I'm in great physical shape. I've got all the gear. I've got the map. I'm going to go with some competent friends. We're going to climb that mountain. Nope. They're the ones that are in the ice. The ones with the Sherpas, you just follow in the footsteps of the Sherpas. They get you to the top. Okay? I'm just telling you guys, learn what the rules of engagement are in your jurisdiction, because your success, both from a legal and tax perspective and from a wealth creation perspective and from a success in the marketplace perspective, will be dependent on how well you understand and operate within the rules and the laws in your state. Okay, it really matters. All of these states, as I said, are different. And so when you want to learn about the standards and the rules, you'll find that there are some that are different from state to state, and some, the most important ones, which are all based on British common law, are in all 50 states. And that's what I want to tell you about right now, because all 50 states require annual filings, a list of officers and members. Sometimes they may have fees like franchise tax fee, especially in California. You're going to have to file your taxes. You're going to have to turn in a report every year. Basically, they call it different things in different states, but basically an annual report to the state that says we have the same officers, the same directors, same address, that kind of deal. And you have to have a resident agent. And what's a resident agent? A resident agent is an address, an individual and an address where the sheriff can come Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, to deliver a lawsuit. All entities, corporations and LLCs are required to have a resident agent. All 50 states require this. And it's very simple. You've got to be open during business hour to receive service of process. So you can be your own resident agent. You could put your home address on as the address of the company. But if you are not there, somebody's not there to receive the lawsuit when it shows up, all of a sudden problems start happening. You can even get default judgments against you because they just couldn't serve you. There's problems, folks. The other thing is, if you've never received a lawsuit before, if you've never had a service processor or a sheriff come and knock on your door or walk into your place of business or come onto your job site and hand you a lawsuit, if you've never done that, I will tell you it's an out-of-body experience. You're going to freak out. You're going to go, oh, what just happened? Yep. And what do I do with this thing? One of the benefits of using a professional resident agent, again, we do this for tens of thousands of companies, charge $159 a year, $159 to always be open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, to receive service of process for your company. And we know what to do with the lawsuit. We know what are the next steps. We can get on the phone with you and say, hey, we have this thing. Here's what you need to do next, and guide you through it. And if that only happens to you once or twice in your life, I promise you, you're going to go, $159, money well spent.
Right.
Whether you use us or somebody else, make sure that they're following the rules, that they are open when they're supposed to be open. There's somebody there to receive the lawsuit, and that they know what the heck they've got to do next, so that you don't waste precious time in confusion mode, and you're not protecting yourself once you become aware that this has started. Because as soon as they hand that envelope, man, the clock is ticking, and you've got a window of time to solve problems, and a professional resident agent can help you with that. So now this really applies in the industry that Scott Carson is teaching about with notes. So when you're buying notes, they could be in any of the 50 states. And some states will allow you to hold entities from different places in your, whatever, your Iowa or Texas or Tennessee or whatever entity. They can own property in multiple states. Some states say, no, you have to have an entity in this state, in our state where the building is. And so one thing is you need to know what the circumstances are in that state, because there is no cookie cutter on this one, folks. Everybody has slightly different laws. When you start doing business in another state, even if the property can be owned by an entity in another state. So let's say you've got a New Mexico LLC and you've got property in Arizona, Utah, and Colorado. Depending on the state, it might have different rules, but in every case, when you start collecting rent on that, or mortgage payments, if you refinance somebody's mortgage and help them stay in the property, you start making money, you have to qualify to do business in that state, which means now you're paying the home state's fees and the place where you're a foreign corporation doing business. So now my New Mexico entity is now doing business in Colorado. I'm a foreign corporation doing business in Colorado. I need to meet that state's requirements. So this is why you want to have somebody that can help you navigate all this stuff, because it can get a little goofy, and it's the GPS is free. The thing is, you need to have the GPS there so you can reference it, which is one of the things Laughlin does. The consulting part of it's always free. Okay, we'll always take your call. We'll help guide you through this. Okay, because everybody's got their own set of rules. Earlier, I said that when you form a corporation or an LLC, it's a paper person. It's a separate thing from you, as long as you follow the rules, right? Otherwise, it's your alter ego. It's not even your twin. It's you, okay? You're a sole prop. But if you do things right, you follow the rules, it becomes a separate paper person from you. And it can enter into contracts, it can sign agreements, it can take tax deductions, it can pay taxes, it can borrow money, lend money, it can do all these things that a human can do. It has the same basic rights, powers, responsibilities, obligations, opportunities that a human does. There's two big things, and we'll talk about this as we go along, but there's two big things that an entity can't do that you can do. It can't think for itself. That's what the board of directors does. It can't speak for itself. That's what the corporate minute book does. Okay, so you need the directors, you need the minute book, because that is the memory and the spoken approvals that the officers have permission from the board to go do something. Those are the things that say, here's what we decide, here's what we talked about, here's what we decided, here's who has authority to do things, and so on. Was that money paid in capital or was it a loan? Was that couch donated to the front of the office, or is it just a loan from one of the members who wants to take it back now that we're closing up shop, right, versus sell it to pay off debt, right? I mean, these are the things that all end up in your corporate minute book, along with much more complicated things. Whether you're an LLC or a corporation, you must do these corporate formalities. All 50 states require it. That means well, I'll just read the list here, but this is just the beginning of it. Things like are listed on here: election of officers, changes to the operating agreement, sale or purchase of assets, buying companies, selling companies, merging with companies, lending money, borrowing money, changing officers' salaries, paying dividends, car insurance, car allowance, health insurance. All of these things have to be discussed in a board meeting. There needs to be minutes of those discussions and then a resolution that says it's okay to do it. All 50 states require that. And if you don't have it in your minute book and you're ever examined, they're going to say, you're not really a separate company. You're really just an alter ego. And I've seen the worst case that I've seen personally was a guy who's now a client, but wasn't when he told the story, who said that he got audited. He knew his financials were in perfect shape. He's a very successful company down in Utah. And they looked at his corporate minute book. He was the only owner, only shareholder, only officer, only director. He was the boss. He was the king. All decisions were made by him. Without him, nothing that was made. And he had pristine financials, but he hadn't followed the corporate rules. So the auditor from the IRS comes in, looks at him, opens his minute book, closes it, and says, okay, we're not dealing with a corporation, we're dealing with a sole proprietor. And they disallowed over $250,000 in taxes, plus a 45% penalty, plus interest, because from the time it should have been paid. Very bad day at the office.
Well, that goes with the question we got here online from somebody. Well, single member LLCs don't need to do the books and minutes, and that there is the reason why you still need to do it.
Okay, so let me tell you about single member LLCs, because you might be correct, but you're probably incorrect. Okay. Matter of fact, I kind of want to test this person, but I don't want to call him out online. So I'm just going to tell you this. There's a variety of levels of law. The law that we think about all the time is statutory law. Some organization like a state assembly or the county commissioners or whatever created a law. Okay, statutory law. In statutory law, no LLC needs to keep minutes or resolutions. None. But guess what? Our court system just won't make it easy on anybody.
Right.
The Trial Lawyers Association is the most powerful lobby in Washington, D.C. All right. And they like to make it good for lawyers. I'm just telling you. So there's a level of law that supersedes statutory law. It's called case law, where the Court of Appeals, is that what it's called? No, not Court of Appeals. Anyway, every single one of the districts in the country have a higher level where they say, how are we going to deal with this situation? And they make a decision, and that becomes case law. So when somebody's going through some sort of a prosecution, lawyers are referring to case law more than statutory law because it supersedes statutory law. Well, all 50 states say that multi-member LLCs now must hold meetings, keep minutes, pass resolutions. All 50 states, if you have 2 or more members of an LLC. 49 states say single-member LLCs have to do that as well. And I've got tons of case law we can cite if we ever want to get into some kind of a spitting match. I'm just telling you what it is. I'm telling you what the deal is. 49 states have case law that say single-member LLCs also must do corporate formalities. The one exception are single-member LLCs in South Carolina. Their case law says single-member LLCs don't have to do it. So what you were saying was accurate statutorily, inaccurate from a case law perspective. Is there anything more on that one before we move on, Scott?
Nope, that totally answers the question.
But here's the deal. I don't blame people for having this belief system because that's how it was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was how it was designed. LLCs were supposed to be simpler. The other thing with single-member LLCs, guys, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but single-member LLCs only have one way to choose to be taxed, and that's as an S corporation. So it's a flow through to you. Mm-hmm. Multi-member LLCs have 4 ways of being taxed. And depending on what you're doing, one of those ways may give you better tax treatment than another. And so limited liability companies were always originally intended for 2 or more members. It was limiting the liability of the other member from some problem I might have. Scott and I form an LLC. One of my kids or I go get in a car accident or something. I get a big judgment against me. They try to come into the business, and all they can do is take whatever distributions are made to me. They can't take any of Scott's money, and they can't take my ownership, my membership in the LLC. They can just take like profit sharing and dividends, year-end bonuses. They can't take my month to month, but they can take other distributions that were intended for me, and they go to the person with the judgment against me. Mm-hmm. There's so much more to that. We could go and talk about the charging order in an LLC, which is very cool, which basically says whatever was supposed to be distributed to me gets distributed to the person who has the judgment against me. And remember, LLCs can issue a K-1 without ever distributing the money. So if we decide this year, Scott and I are not going to distribute any of the profits, and we both are responsible for $100,000 of profits. So we're going to have tax of whatever our taxable bracket is for Scott as an individual, Aaron as an individual. My judgment creditor gets the K-1 and owes the tax, even though they never got the money. Remember how I said sometimes if you're set up right, you can stop lawsuits before they start. Nobody wants to pay taxes on money they never received. That's a disincentive to sue.
Right.
Make sense? I'm giving you a lot of information. Do I need to stop and clarify anything, Scott? How are we doing?
Nope, we're doing good. This all is perfect.
I'm giving a lot of information. I don't want to confuse this subject. All right. All of the things that are on this list and a gazillion more, hundreds more things have got to be discussed in a board meeting. So there have to be minutes that show what you discussed, and then there's got to be resolutions. Resolutions are the decision, the permission slip from the board to the officer, go do something. I don't care if you're the only member of the board and you're the only officer. When you're thinking about what to do, you're in board of director mode. Even if you're just thinking about it in the shower or driving down the road, you think about it. Those are the minutes. You decide, that's a resolution. Then you go do it. That's the officer doing what the board told them to do, even though it's all happening right here inside of this little sphere on top of your neck. That is the way these entities work. That is the legal fact. So what is it that keeps you, the human, from the paper person that we've created in the entity? It's called the corporate veil. The corporate veil is the thing that shows you're separate. I'm not the corporation. Corporation is not me. I'm not the LLC. The LLC is not me. You got to write that down. I'm not the LLC. The LLC is not me. I am not the LLC. The LLC is not me. Write it down. I'm not the corporation. The corporation is not me. If the entity gets sued, if it defaults on loan, declares bankruptcy, creditors, if you have a solid corporate veil, the creditors can only make claims against the company, not on your personal estate. So that means the ship can sink. It just didn't work out, but you don't have to go down with the ship and take all that debt with you forward. That protection against creditors is the fundamental reason entities exist. It is the basis upon which these dispensations, originally from the monarchy and then later from different governing bodies, like in our case, state assemblies. In most countries, it's a federal corporation. In the United States, it's all, we don't have a federal thing. We only have all 50 states. Right. So this permission from the government is intended to help you survive a failed business opportunity, because the government knows that 86.3%, pay attention, 86.3% of gross domestic product is created by companies of 50 employees or less. Small business, 86.3 GDP. They need you to not die when the business fails. They need you to get up and brush yourself off and try again. And that's why when you follow the rules, they'll let that stuff they'll let the private companies take a hit. They'll let the bank lose money, but you keep going, because the United States of America needs 86.3% of GDP to stay healthy and strong. Make sense?
Yes,
So
sir.
that's what the corporate veil is. And that's why these laws exist, is to keep you going, because such a tiny fraction of the population has the brain that says, I want to do my own thing instead of I want to be a process person and follow something that somebody else has figured out. You'll pay me, I'll be safe, I'll have a job, I'll have health insurance. There's a tiny fraction of us that go, heck no, man, I'm going to go blaze my own path. And whatever the way you do it, I don't care. For the government knows you guys, the risk takers, are the ones who make the money happen so that the government has something to tax so they can operate. And that's just how it works. Now, you may not like how they spend your money, but the point is the rules exist to keep a small percentage of the population safe so they will continue to be innovative and try new things and take risk. That's why the corporate veil can exist. So this statement just basically says, look, the easiest way to keep the corporate veil safe is just to make sure that you're holding your meetings, keeping your minutes, passing your resolutions, issuing stock, managing your stock ledger, staying on time with the government. That's what it is. And some of those may come up in other slides. The point is, just follow these very simple, basic rules, and the government will have your back. If you don't know how to follow them because you're busy doing the work with a company like us, who very inexpensively will make sure this all gets done. We'll even do it for you just by talking to you on the phone and have your back.
Yep.
Remember, because I've got some slides later, and I want you to even consider, just chew on this in the back of your mind. Is somebody actually truly watching your back right now? Do you really believe you know everything about how this stuff works? And well, 93% of people are overpaying their taxes. So right off the bat, we know they don't know about that. Okay, because they're overpaying, which means they don't know something, because even the IRS is saying, you're paying too much. We'll take it, but you're paying too much. Mostly it's inexperienced, never been sued before companies that get creamed in a lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually not the experienced ones, the ones that have had some battle scars and learned how to actually be safe versus just assuming that they're safe. Okay, we'll come more to that. So protecting the corporate veil starts with keeping a good paper trail. That's the formalities: holding meetings, writing minutes, passing resolutions. This can happen in a formal setting. It can happen in your brain. It can happen in the shower or while you're falling asleep. It can happen around a great big walnut table in a high-rise office building. It can happen on the beach house you rented in Bali. It can happen in all those places. Point is, you need to hold the meetings and write down the formalities.
And one of the biggest unclaimed tax breaks on that, what you just said, is that you can actually rent your house. Your company can rent your house from you personally and pay you to rent that space up to 14 times a year at the normal cost for renting office space. And I've heard that from multiple people.
14 days.
Yeah, 14 days a year. So,
yep. And the company can deduct it, and the person receiving it, you, does not have to claim it.
Yep.
It's got to be fair market value. So if it's like I have a beach house, right? It's a nice home, 4 bedrooms, home theater, pool table on the beach, beautiful view. We can rent that out for, depending on the season, $1,000 to $1,500 a night. We don't, but we could. Others of our neighbors are doing that. So imagine if you could hold your meetings there, spend 3 or 4 days, 4 times a year there. So it adds up to 14. If you go to 15 days, you've screwed it up. You can do 1 to 14, but if you go 15, rent it 15 days, you've messed up the Augusta rule.
Yep.
But imagine if you could take 14,000 or 21,000 for no tax-free money, kid, on something that you own anyway, or you can go somewhere else. point is, yeah, you can use the Augusta rule. Scott, thanks for bringing that up. I was not going to mention that today, but it's really true. The minutes are the memory of the company. The resolutions, as I said, are the decisions, and they result as a permission slip to the board. And now I want to see what the next slide is. Okay. We're going to come to that my favorite slide in a minute. Some other things that will pierce your corporate veil. Commingling funds. A lot of people, let me give you an example. So here in my pocket, I have 2 credit cards. This card here is the one I use for all my personal expenses. I put all of our household, everything, go to the grocery store, pay the light bill, whatever goes on this card here. I get a lot of points on this card. Then in my own name, I applied for the Amex Platinum card and I got it. And I use this for all my business expenses. Both of them required my Social Security number, my credit score to get. However, this one is only used for business expenses. So if you have done something similar, you said, I want to keep personal and business separate. I'm going to get a second credit card and I'm going to use it. And maybe it even has your company name on it, but it was based on your personal credit. Okay. So you go out and you do all your spending through the month for your business, and you get the statement at the end of the month and you review it, and you've got all your receipts, and you go through and you match everything up. And sure enough, 100% of what's on this card is business expense. And then you just do a digital transfer or write a check to American Express from your business, pay the bill, pay it right on time, no late fees, no interest, whatever. You just commingled funds. You just commingled funds. Why? Because you used a personal credit card and the company's paying your personal credit card. You go, well, it's my company. Well, remember, I'm not the corporation. The corporation is not me. If you worked for, Ford Motor Company, and you were traveling and racking up points on your own American Express card, and you wanted to get the company to reimburse you for travel and so on, you would give them expense report. The controller would review it just like you did. Look at all your receipts. Look at it. It's all right. Write you a check. You would deposit it, and then you would pay your credit card bill. So the company didn't pay your bill. The company reimbursed you as a human. You paid your credit card bill. That way, we're not commingling. But when the company starts paying your personal bills, that's commingling funds. Oh, I'm going over to Staples. I need to get some office supplies. Ooh, I don't have my business checkbook. I'll just write a personal check and I'll figure it out in QuickBooks later. Once in a while, you'll get away with it. If it shows a pattern, the auditor just says, this is just another piggy bank. This is your commingling funds. This is your alter ego bank account. Folks, these little ticky-tacky separations are the things that allow the ship to sink without you going down with the ship, allow you to keep all your tax deductions, allow you to stop lawsuits before they start. That's how it is. Okay, so commingling funds, keep them separate. Always sign anything with your title. Okay, so if you're signing anything on behalf of the company, use your title, president or manager. Keep the company in good standing. Make sure that when you do contracts, loan agreements, or whatever, you always identify that you're a corporation or an LLC. Keep the company in good standing with the state. If they see that you're always, going out of good standing and then playing catch up a year and a half later or whatever, they go, you're not taking this company seriously. For those few $100 that you owed, why did you not care? So these are reasons that will pierce your corporate veil. So if you failed to keep proper corporate records, and if you ever get sued, you have a 50 to 94% chance. Listen again, 50 to 94% chance of losing personal assets to satisfy the corporate judgment. Why? Because the corporate veil is not there. So whomever gets a judgment against your corporation or LLC can go after your whole estate, or if they get a judgment against you as a human, they can go after your business. Okay? This is what most people do. They ignore it. They pretend it didn't happen. This doesn't apply to me. I'm small. We're not making much money. I'm a nice person. I would never hurt anybody. I haven't done anything wrong. Guys, you don't proceed from the misconception that the legal system makes any common sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
It does not. If you ever go through a lawsuit, you will learn. I don't care. It could be a contested divorce. It could be custody of your kids. It could be a rental thing. It could be a manufacturing thing. It could be your warehouse burned down, so you couldn't send goods to the next company that needed them to produce their widgets. So they sue you because you slowed down. And you go, but my place burned down. They go, I know, but our only remedy is to sue you for your insurance money because we're damaging our responsibilities now. Guys, lawsuits are, everybody worries about taxes, but I'm telling you, man, lawsuits, I've said for years, taxes are like a toll on a toll road, and you can prepare for them. You can anticipate them. A lawsuit is like a meteor that falls from space and destroys everything in its path. And it changes the whole landscape. And while you're in the midst of an audit or a lawsuit, you're freaking out. You're wondering, did I have all my receipts? Did I really write that off? Was I too aggressive with what I did? Am I going to lose everything? Are they going to freeze my accounts? Am I going to no longer have a business? Is my spouse going to stay with me? Even if you win, you lose because you spent money, you stressed out, you lost several years of your life. It just sucks. The best thing to do is be prepared for the audit and stop lawsuits before they start. Okay. So a lot of people just do nothing. The formal documents are the only thing. The stuff in your corporate minute book are the only thing that prove you and the company are separate. And there are a lot of them. Okay. So here's my favorite. Hold on. We're going to do this for fun. So I always say, if we're doing a live event, I'll say, who's a do-it-yourselfer? And it's totally reasonable if any of you listening are do-it-yourselfers. Totally right. So you just need to know what to do. And there are literally hundreds of things that need board resolutions. I asked my legal team to put together just the most common ones. So I'm giving you 5 or 6% in this next slide of the items that need to be memorialized in a formal board resolution in your minute book, okay? Don't try to take notes or take pictures. Just try to read them as they go by so they come into your consciousness, okay? Here we go. How much petty cash is in the drawer needs a board resolution. Look at this, guys.
And it goes on and on and on and on and on and on.
We have a do it for you service, done for you service called the Corporate Veil Protection Service, where we do this for tens of thousands of companies. It's very inexpensive, about $80 a month, and it's unlimited documents. And this is not a sales pitch for that. I'm just saying we know what the most common ones are because we do this every month for tens of thousands of companies. Okay. The problem if you're doing it yourself is, do you know what legally needs to be documented? The problem is, again, who's got your back? Because you may think you're prepared, but if you only are assuming, or you know what you know, which doesn't mean you know everything, there's a chance that you have a chink in the armor. You have an unprotected flank, right? Okay. So you want to maintain a corporate record book. You want a record book that has stock certificates because you must issue stock. If you do not issue stock or membership from the company to you, the law says you don't own the company.
Yep.
You need to have your operating agreement or bylaws and all your corporate formalities in your corporate minute book. So we've covered a lot of these. What's the difference between an LLC and an S Corp? Are LLCs required to meet corporate formalities? Where should I form my company? What are the annual requirements? remember, there's a reason why there's multiple tools, because there's, you can't build a whole house just with a hammer. You need different tools. So depending on what the outcome, what the objective is, you're going to use a variety of tools. And as you're building your real estate portfolio, or you're building a multitude of streams of income, some things you're going to want a single member LLC to hold that rental house. Some places you're going to want to have a C corp because you've got some investors who've put money in there. You may want that for privacy. You may want a Nevada or Wyoming C corp where nobody knows who owns it. There's reasons to use the different entities. Scott, this might be a good place to stop and just take a quick, like a 3-minute break or something.
Yep, sounds good. Hang on a second.
Okay.
All right, we're back. Yeah, there's definitely, these are the common questions we see from folks all the time out there. One question we get for those folks that live on that part of the West Coast was always like, well, I have a LLC in California, or I bought a property in Arizona. Why have I still have to pay registration fees in the state of California? And it's just one of their requirements, is that anybody that lives in there, or you are co-members in LLC there, or if you live in California, you have an LLC anywhere in the country, you're going to pay the filing fees back to the state.
Yeah, you're going to pay the franchise tax fee. California is very aggressive with this, just like the United States is very aggressive with foreign income that you make. It's one of the problems in our industry. We're the old dog. We're the original Nevada Incorporation Service. And a lot of our competitors give half truths they tell you all the truth about Nevada, but they forget to tell. So they got all these Californians who are paying, 10.7% income tax in California, and they want to form a Nevada company to eliminate state income tax. And people go, yeah, no state income tax. They forget to tell you that you're actually doing business in California, so you have to be registered. So not only are you going to have all of Nevada's rules and fees, but also all of California's fees. All your privacy goes out the window, and you're still paying the franchise tax fee. So anyway, those are the common questions. If you guys, just as a thing, if you don't have a corporation or LLC right now, let Scott know. Put it in the chat. Say you want to explore that, and we'll get on a phone call and we can talk about that. Okay. Well, let's move on. This just says we can help you form it in all 50 states. And there you go. If you want to do this, you can I don't know if you can call the phone number that's on the screen there at the bottom, or you can, I suppose there's going to be it says use a promo code. It says note. I'm embarrassed. I just noticed that because I hadn't noticed that in the slides before. So I don't know how you get to use the promo code. Maybe when you call into Laughlin and you tell them you're a Scott Carson student, or you're part of We Close Notes aspect of it, use the code NOTE and it'll knock $100 off it. Or if you go to corpveilprotection.com, and I think if you sign up for it there directly too, if you use the code, you buy it, you'll get a discount.
Yep.
All right. We'll
put the links in the chat roll for everybody, so don't worry about it. It'll be look in the chat roll. Clickable.
All right. So the funny thing is, later I saw at the end there's a QR code for something that we're gonna. There's a free thing, and then that we have an event that is Magnify Your Wealth, and there's also an opportunity to scan a QR code to sign up for Magnify Your Wealth and get $100 off. And I think we're still in early bird pricing, so that would reduce the price down to either to $100, like $99, or $199. It would be very inexpensive.
Very inexpensive.
Less expensive than our cost for the food. So it's all good. And there's no pitching. There's no pushing from the front of the stage to buy stuff at that event. So you can come and learn an awful lot and never have to spend a nickel other than your hotel room. So anyway, all right, let's move on. Making money is only good as your ability to keep it. So now let's talk about how do we use business properly organized, properly managed entities, what we've been talking about up to now, to use multiple entities, multiple jurisdictions, and so on. Okay, according to Small Business Administration, 53% of businesses are involved in at least one lawsuit at any given time, and threat of legal litigation is a constant threat to virtually every industry. And real estate, kind of like the restaurant industry, is just rife with lawsuits. It's just almost like a part of the business.
Yeah, as they
Right?
say in real estate, it's not if you're going to be sued, it's when you're going to be sued at some point.
So knowing that, you don't need to stay away from the industry. The industries that have the biggest threats around them are also the ones you make the most money in. Stock market and real estate is how the rich get super rich. You know, it's not from the fees they're collecting, it's from increasing the value of their asset. That's how you get rich, is by improving the value of the asset, whether it's a hard asset like real estate or it's a stock in a company. This all the richest people in the world, it's those two things is where the wealth is. So you don't want to shy away from it. You just want to know the rules, know how to protect yourself. Okay. So wait, go back. Okay. What does a lawsuit cost you? Well, it costs you money. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the average lawsuit is between $50,000 and $250,000, depending on the type of litigation. I spent last year $100,000 in legal fees defending an easement on a piece of property that I owned that existed before I bought the property. It was already filed with the county. The giver of the easement, grantor of the easement, didn't want me to have it anymore, wanted my land to be landlocked, took me to court on it. I won, but it was an old lady, and the judge said, we're not going to give you your legal fees, Mr. Young. You know, you're a successful guy. You can afford this. She can't afford to pay your legal fees. So you own your easement. You have access to your land, which is valuable, but you had to eat the $100,000 in law. Can you believe it? On something that existed. There wasn't even a question mark. It existed and I had to pay it. So if you think 50,000 is a lot, folks, let me tell you what, you can eat up 50,000 really quick in a lawsuit. Way better to spend a few $1,000s. What is the old expression? It's a medieval expression. It says, a stitch in time saves nine. Meaning, if you have a little hole in your sock, fix it now. Don't wait where you have a big fix. Make one little stitch instead of having to stitch up the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Stitch in time saves nine. Just get yourself organized properly up front and just go to work instead of going, it'll never happen to me. It'll never happen to me. And then you get creamed. Okay. So lawsuits cost you money. They cost you time. There's no such thing as a speedy trial. There's a huge delay. Some states like California can take 8 to 10 years to get to court. Almost nobody gets their day in court. Almost everyone settles because the system is so heavy that you just finally will pay the people. And especially if you have frivolous litigation with a commission-based lawyer, they just keep hitting you with paper. Your lawyer that you're paying has to keep responding. You can't ignore it because they'll get a default judgment against you. So eventually what you do is you pay them off. What will it cost to settle? It's legal extortion, folks. It costs time, it costs money, and there are all kinds of studies that show the stress from going through a lawsuit or an audit actually takes time off of your life. So the more you can do to mitigate that risk, the better. Okay? Common myths about asset protection, that it's only for rich people. Baloney. If you have anything worth protecting, is it worth a few $100s to protect something that's worth a few thousand or a few tens of thousands or 100,000? Or how much equity do you own in your property? Is it worth a few $100 to just get yourself set up the right way? You don't have to be rich. Most business owners are not rich. Do you know that only 4% of businesses ever break $1 million a year in revenue? Only 4%.
Wow.
You don't have to be rich. You just have to have something to lose.
Right.
Because if you have something to lose, I don't care. If you are not paying yourself, you're barely paying your bills, you're barely paying your one employee that works at your coffee kiosk in the Safeway parking lot, but people know you own a business, think you're rich. Asset protection is not illegal or unethical. Having the ship sink without you going down without the ship is not unethical. It's the law. It's why these entities exist.
Right.
If you, out of the kindness of your heart, Want to pay all the money back to people? I salute you for that. But that has nothing to do with the law. It has nothing to do with the rules. It only has to do with your disposition, and you get to make the choice. A lot of people say, if I do asset protection, am I going to lose control of my assets? If I put it into corporations, if I use lawyers to help me, if I put it into a trust, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose control? Or I have an LLC, I'm protected. Or I have insurance, I'm protected. You know what, folks? You know how many doctors are discontinuing working in hospitals because the malpractice insurance is so high? The reason malpractice insurance rates are so high is because people sue you to get your insurance. It's like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So these are all things people who've never been through it say.
Yep.
You go through it and you go, oh, hell no, that will never happen to me again. I'm going to batten down the hatches. But it's always people that, you know, folks, you can read all the books, watch all the YouTube videos about how to ride a bicycle. You can know all the physics of it. You can understand the height that the seat ought to be from the ground for your size. You can know it all. But you don't know anything until you start pedaling the bicycle, till you fall down a few times, till you see how hard it is to stop on a wet downhill, till that's when you know about it. You know bicycle riding versus something about it. You've learned about it, but you've never done it. And I don't mean to be saying anything negative. I'm speaking as a guy who's been in business 40 years making a payroll. I've had, I'm hesitant to say thousands, but hundreds and hundreds of employees, dozens of companies, and I work with tens of thousands of companies. I'm telling you, folks, getting this right, you're gonna either do it before you have a problem, or you're gonna come back to me or somebody else, what I call event driven, where you had a shitty event. Oops, sorry, had a horrible event. You can bleep that out. And you say, I never want it to happen again. So how do you protect yourself? First thing is, where are you going? What's the right asset? What are the right entities to use? All right, so let's make a game plan. Let's do it on paper first. When you have a paper game plan, here's where I am, here's where I want to go. It gives you a map to work from. So that's the first thing, is decide, what's my outcome? What have I got? What am I going to do with it? And what's the result I want to get? Okay, you need that plan. Okay, then you start to mitigate the risk. How do you do it? You start to separate assets into different buckets. When you depending on your tolerance for risk, you will have one LLC, no LLCs, one C Corp, one LLC, 3 LLCs, 100 LLCs. It'll all depend on what you own, how much value is in each one of these structures, and your tolerance for risk. All right. Did you know that most ski resorts, the snow ski resorts, every chairlift is in a separate corporation? Why? Well, if you've ever been on one, you know there's a level of intimidation while you sit there with your skis swinging from the lift, and you could just lean forward and fall out. Well, they know that too, and they don't want somebody to die, or worse than die, get maimed for life, where they can never function again, and they've got to be taken care of for the next 60 years. That lawsuit, the owners are going to lose the whole resort. So they put the chairlifts in separate entities, and all you're going to get is the insurance in that corporation. They're separating their risk. New York cab companies, every 2 cabs, separate corporation. Okay, so we want to separate. What are we separating? Different real estate holdings, an operating business, heavy equipment. Maybe you've got big earth moving equipment or something, or you've got special computers. You've got things that you need to do your work. You've got stock accounts or other assets, gold, silver, whatever, holding companies that are controlling things. You start to separate things into different buckets. And as you decide which things you need to keep with which things, you start to create different corporate assets. Maybe you end up using trusts. Maybe some things are in your name, some things are in a name that's easily searchable, other things are in a name where the owner is not in the public record. It depends on what you're doing, what your goals are, there's a million ways to do it. There's not one path to the top of the mountain. There's a million paths. The main thing is to understand there's not one way, and to seek out what the variety of ways are, because you might find a faster, cheaper, more efficient way, more tax-friendly way, more asset protection way, simpler. You don't know. We've got to figure out the best route to get to where we want to go. Right. Let me give you a little information on dual entity strategy as we start working toward the end of this. So basically, this is a very confusing looking one. Basically what happens is you've got somebody who lives in California, W-2 wage earner. They've got some money. They buy a turnkey rental in Alabama, right? And they've got a little cash flow coming from that, right? And they're collecting that money in a California LLC, which is redistributing back to. So this is sort of a messy looking diagram that says how quickly things can get confusing. You've got money coming from the LLC. It's real estate driven. You're also a W-2 wage earner. If these two are spouses in California, which is a community property state, that's a single member LLC, because in a community property state, spouses are considered one member of the LLC. The estate has it, versus non-community properties where spouses can be, individual owners. So you've got all these little things that get kind of confusing. The goal of these confusing things is to reduce the incentive to be sued. Right. We want you to look like you don't really have anything. John D. Rockefeller, third richest individual to ever walk the planet Earth, said on his deathbed to his children, "Own nothing, control everything." You don't want to look rich on paper. You might be living a lifestyle that's rich, but if somebody does an asset search, if a lawyer in 30 seconds, because they have your name and your address, or your name and your phone number, your name and your birthday, and they can look at everything you've ever had your name on, you want to look like, this person, they've got some stuff, but they've also got all this debt. There's all this stuff. This looks like it's going to be a complicated circumstance to dive into a lawsuit with. We don't want to do this. I'll work for money, not for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The vast majority of those lawsuits that I mentioned at the beginning of this program are commission-based. They're a lawyer working on contingency of winning the case. When you get off an airplane at Las Vegas and you start driving out of the airport, every other billboard is, did you get in an accident? Did you fall down? Did you drink dirty water? Did somebody, look at you sideways on the freeway? Do your shoes hurt your feet? We can go do a class action lawsuit. We'll go after them for you, and you pay nothing until we win a judgment, right? It is a very good idea that was meant to give people without a lot of money access to the courts, has been completely perverted and prostituted by, I think, generally speaking, the lowest level. I'm not saying this is every individual, but as a class group, the ambulance chaser lawyers, is a reason they're called that. They've given a very bad name to the lawyers, and it's unfair, because lawyers can be your best friend in business, but if all you've ever done is dealt with somebody who's just frivolous litigation, tort litigation, ambulance chaser litigation, slip and fall, you're dealing with the lowest level of that profession. But anyway, the way you stop those people from coming after you is looking like there's nothing to get. Okay. So the dual entity strategy provides a barrier, stops lawsuits before they start, barrier to getting sued. It uses liens and other encumbrances and equity stripping to pull money away from the profitable business to other places. And it makes you the priority creditor. Okay. There's something in the law called, why does my slides keep jumping ahead on me? There's something in the law called first in time, first in right, or what we call first in time, first in line. Okay. So let me explain that, because I don't have a slide. I thought maybe there'd be a diagram. Let me just explain this. So let's say I have $1 million I want to invest in notes. So Aaron could just go to a Scott Carson event, learn how to do it, and start buying notes in my name. I could do that. Or I could take that $1 million and capitalize a Nevada C corporation. Okay. The Nevada C corporation then loans that money either in a loan or a line of credit to my Oregon. So Nevada, nobody knows who owns it. Oregon, everybody knows everything. The Oregon company can borrow money from the Nevada company. So what do we need there? Well, we need a couple things. There's got to be a document that explains our agreement. There's got to be a loan. Money's got to move from Nevada to Oregon. Oregon needs to start making interest payments, at least, monthly payments, just like if you bought a car, bought a house, maybe it's an annual interest only payment. The good news is you get to be involved with both sides of this transaction.
Right.
So make rules that will make sense. Nevada has no usury law. So you can charge basically whatever interest rate you want to, but keep it within reason. I mean, the credit card companies go into the low 30s a lot of times on interest. So if business is great in Oregon and you want to move a lot of money, have a high interest rate. If business is just getting started, have a low interest rate. But the thing is, Nevada doesn't tell you what the interest rates have to be. So Nevada loaned Oregon money. The money moved. There's a contract, a mortgage agreement, a loan document, intellectual property licensing fee, a lease of heavy equipment, but some exchange of value is given. There's a contract that explains it. There's a monthly payment coming back to the lender. Now, anybody can do that. You could even do that after a lawsuit started. It'd be illegal, but you could go paper it all up. Totally inappropriate, but you could do it. Or you could do it all legally and leave it there, and the judge could say, well, we believe you're involved with this Nevada company, so we're going to allow this judgment to be paid to this person who got a judgment against you. So besides the things I said, the money moves or the value moves, payments are made, there's a contract explaining it. We had one more piece. It's called a UCC-1 filing at the county. It's a lien against Oregon, the operating businesses, all their stuff, their receivables, their computers, everything they've got that's of value. Nevada is going to lien that because they've loaned money or they've given some value over there. I want protection. Now what happens? Somebody over here decides to sue Oregon. They win a judgment against the Oregon corporation. Okay. So now we're faced with that. We lost the lawsuit. Okay. The law says when it comes to liens, first in time, first in line. So what happens? Sure, I have a judgment against somebody out here, but before I can pay them, I have to pay Nevada back. So all my receivables, all my computers, everything goes out of there. I'm now bankrupt. I've got nothing. We close down. This judgment creditor was not the priority. The Nevada holding company, nobody else is doing business with that company but you. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows who owns them. So that's the law. That is the law. It's not a trick. It's not a parlor game. It's not something inappropriate. It is the way the laws are set up. Okay. First in time, first in right, or first in line. Remember that one. Okay. Everything must be put in writing. Everything needs to be documented. Board meetings, resolutions, right? All has to be there. Issuing stock. Everything's got to be done by the law. You must follow the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. If you blow it, if you don't do it, the judge will say, sorry, you didn't finish this part, so you don't get this benefit. Okay. So what is asset protection not? It's not games. It's not hiding. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's not shucking and jiving. It's following the law, using the law. It is not illegal. It is legal when you do it right. But if you try to be a trickster with the IRS, try to be a trickster with the California taxing authority, you try to screw around with the court system, they will go to great extremes to make you an example of what not to do to everybody else you know, and it will be a very bad period of time for you. So what makes you a target? Well, commingling stuff usually will make you into a target. So running multiple businesses out of one entity can make you a target. Because what if you're making a whole bunch of money in your multi-level marketing or your coaching, things that have like almost no risk at all.
Right.
Right. And then you're also making money in real estate, but then somebody slips and falls and they sue you. Now you're paying legal fees to fight that off. And it's sucking all the money out of these other things. Or they get involved and say, well, wait a minute, you took money from an investor to do real estate investment, but I see in your same company, you're also doing all these other things that have nothing to do with what you said you did in this lending agreement. They can go to the state securities board and say that you were inappropriately representing an investment opportunity. There's all kinds of crazy stuff you could do when you mix things. So the idea is just separate them. Have one for your coaching business. Have one for your online, Etsy or whatever you're doing there, your Turo car rentals or your whatever, and have another one for your real estate investments. Now, what else? A lot of people go around going, oh, that's my rental house. That's my rental house. That's my RV. That's my company over there. That's my boat. That's my Mercedes-Benz. That's my gold. Here's my crypto account. Mine. Well, the more you say mine, the more people go, oh, it's his. It's hers. I'm going over there. That's a way to start lawsuits, folks. You don't need to tell anybody. Oh, a friend owns that ranch. I get the opportunity to rent this boat from time to time. I love renting this place in the beach or in Paris or in the mountains, the ski chalet. And you know what? If a company owns your beach house, if you've put it in a separate LLC, pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
Pay rent to it. What do you care? Is the money really leaving your hands? No, not really. But it shows that it's a legitimate separate relationship. Okay, pay a little rent. When all leads road, come on back. I don't know what my slides are doing. They're jumping on their own. When all roads lead back to you, you become a bigger target. And it's really easy to have all roads lead back to you if you do things like with the state. In this case, here's ABC Appliance Service with the individual's home address on it. Well, how many places is Shady Side Way in Corona, California? How many entities is it on? It's all these different names, but they all lead back to Bob and Mary's house.
Mm-hmm.
They're the resident agent. They've decided to be the resident agent here. And all roads lead back. That's in the public record. In that the resident agent is in every state, every place. So how many places are using that address? Okay, we can start to believe, because it's all out of your own home, that all 10 of these structures belong to you, right? All right, so let's not have the roads all lead to you. To assess your chance of being sued, the first step is to figure out where you could potentially be liable or otherwise legally financially responsible. So look around. Where do you have other people involved? Where could something stop? Where have you borrowed money that you need to make payments on? What if your renter stops paying you? What if the market crashes? What if all the money that you think is your safety net is in crypto, and then all of a sudden Elon Musk does a tweet and the market for that crypto crashes? We've seen all of these things happen, right? Mm-hmm. So figure out where the things are and then start separating things. So let's say you have a holding company in your home state, and it is a corporation, and it owns 3 properties. Okay. You've set up one company and it owns 3 rental properties, and you're the shareholder, director, president. It's in your home state. It's in the public record. Okay. Not very safe, but it's a little safe because the holding company, if it's doing everything right, is separated from your personal business. But a lot of risk right here, and they know it's you. Okay, they know it's you. So you could set that holding company up in Nevada and Wyoming. Now nobody knows it's you, and it can own the properties. But we don't know. There might be different rules, or there might be a lot of equity in these properties. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're all free and clear, right? So now, do you really want to have millions of dollars of equity in one company? Maybe not. So then maybe you what this slide is showing you, what I was going to say was you could separate all those properties into separate LLCs, use a holding company that nobody else knows about. You don't want to be involved at all, hire a nominee. Nevada and Wyoming allow somebody else, usually it's a lawyer, to go into the public record and be the president and and the director. The shareholder's not in the public record, and that lawyer who can protect your identity can be in the public record, can be the officer and the director. They can do that. Then you can go further. The holding company maybe says all these assets that we own are not actually the property of the company. The company is actually owned by a trust. And maybe it's an irrevocable trust. It's a dynasty trust for your kids or grandkids, or for the Red Cross, or the, Humane Society, or whatever, your church, or whatever. So that now nobody can sue you at all in this situation because you don't own it. Nobody even knows that you own the Nevada corporation. You got a nominee that's standing in your way. And if it got all the way, somehow a judgment got all the way back to the company, and they say, Mr. Young, you need to forward this money, I could say, I don't own it. Right. It's in an irrevocable trust for other people unrelated to this lawsuit. And you know what the judge would have to say? Oh, yeah, you're right. You can't do it. Okay, case dismissed. That's how it goes. I've seen it happen over and over again. So here we go. The peanuts. This is an impregnable fortress. No one can take it. I could defend this position from 100 attackers. I have ammunition enough to fight the whole day. This fortress stands firm and unyielding. It's like a rock of Gibraltar. This is what most of us think, by the way. I formed my single member LLC in Iowa, right? I'm not doing anything wrong. I do excellent work. I'm protected. I'm ready. I'm safe. But in our boldness and lack of experience, we say, I'm impenetrable, I'm impregnable, I can go all day, I can fight off 100 attackers. So
they get hit by from the blind side.
Yeah, it's always from the. So folks, who's got your back? Hold on, why is it jumping on its own? Who has your back? We've been doing this for over a half a century for hundreds of thousands of people. We understand how to build that impregnable fortress all the way around you using the law, using the right entities, filing the right documents, and making sure they stay current. Okay. If your asset protection should start before you're sued, because once you are in a lawsuit, you have to pause everything and get through it. And those are the people that I call event driven. They never want to go through that again. So they have to do it. So here's the deal. What we're going to offer to you for free. I know there's all these dollar amounts. Forget that. It's free. It's what we call our customized snapshot. What is it? It is a visual representation of where you are now and the map to get you to where you want to go. Here's the corporate structural pieces. Here's where you are now. Here's what needs to be done. And here's the milestones where you'll want to look at clamping on the next piece that you're going to need. I'm going to offer that as part of this masterclass to everybody for free. You can scan the QR code, or you can go to corporatefortress.com and do it. And it's free. So only for Scott Carson people. It's on the website all the time for $396. We often offer it for $199 in events. You guys are going to get it free. The other thing I want to do is, and this just says, so once you do it, you'll get contacted. They'll ask you questions. They'll create snapshot for you. So corporatefortress.com, fill it out. You'll do it. Now, in May 17, 18, 19, we do have the next Magnify Your Wealth Summit come up. We limit it to 100 people. We're looking for small business owners who we want. Scott has spoken many times at that event. If you click this QR code and use promo code NOTE, or go to magnifyyourwealth.com and fill out the form and use the code NOTE, it'll take $100 off the fee. And please don't quote me on this, but I think early bird pricing is there still. It's always there for the first 2 months or so of doing it, and then it goes up to $1,500 by the time we're at the event. If you show up at the door, it's $1,500.
This is a phenomenal 3-day event. You're sitting down with the advisors, accountants, people from Laughlin who do snapshots all the time, will look with you. No selling at all. It is literally content, well over a $2,000 plus ticket with everything provided. The food's there. It's at a beautiful place there in San Diego for 3 days. And
We go
it's
on
one of the
the
most
Mission Bay
impactful.
cruise, go on the boat cruise.
Yeah, but it's also one of the most impactful events that you will ever attend as an entrepreneur and business owner. Whether you're brand new in a business or you've been in it for 20 years, I've never seen somebody walk away disappointed or thought that they wasted their time. This is one of the most impactful events to go to. And I don't care where you're at. And here, you may have been in business, and that one slide with Aaron may have scared the crap out of you, all the different things you're doing. The first time I went to it, it scared the crap out of me. But I realized I got to do the right things, and I can correct it and make the right changes to my businesses to help save me in case of an issue or anything like that. And so that's why everybody here, if you're in business, and one of the most important things you want to do, starting a business, it's all about setting the foundation in place, getting it right. And part of why we have Aaron on here has been very gracious, is like you said, giving a snapshot and be able to talk with somebody for free, $397 value, but also the ridiculous early bird pricing. We're the first ones actually promoting this event. For Aaron way before anybody else does, because I want you guys to book your tickets. I want you to go to this event, and you can save a tremendous amount of money on this by basically $100 per person getting to go for you, or a little bit more depending as we get closer to the event. But when I'm getting at, ladies and gentlemen, this is an event you want to go to. Pull out your phone, take a quick snapshot of that QR code, or go to magnifyyourwealth.com. Use a code note to even save $100 more off it for you guys. But it's if you're in real estate and real estate investing, notes, subject to deals, whatever it might be, commercial, rentals, Airbnbs, wholesaling stuff,
syndication, whatever.
Yeah, syndications. This is stuff. Hey, David, I see David's online here. Good. You would enjoy this stuff. A lot of folks. Dimitri on there. Hey, buddy, good to see you. Boyd, that you're live on there now. Awesome. Good to see you. These are things that you guys will want to do to protect yourself, help you sleep it better at night. And when the wolves come a knocking, you're not a rocking.
Yeah, it's a guys. I try to make it fun, and I play a little bit. And I mentioned the boat cruise. Thank you for pulling me back to center, Scott. The fact is, we've been doing this for decades. It is a powerful conference, as Scott said. There is no selling, but there is an opportunity to sit with the CPA and the lawyer and the advisor all at the same table and work on your situation, not just have generic information from the stage. And there is no run to the back of the room offer. The biggest thing we offer, you know what my sales pitch is? It's for our mastermind, our inner circle. And all I do is I say, look, some people have blue lanyards and some people have orange lanyards. If you're curious about the orange lanyards, there are in our mastermind. Just go talk to them. That's the sales pitch. And you know what? We always get 10, 12, 15 people that want to join the mastermind. And it's because other people in the group told them what it is. I don't want to try to convince you in 45 minutes to get money out of your pocket. We want you to be a client for a long time.
Yep.
And thankfully, our client retention is incredibly high, as is our employee retention. And once you're a Laughlin client, we hope we'll be with you for basically cradle to grave with your business, and then teach your kids how to do it as they come up.
Totally.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Hey, it's been a wonderful year. And once again, those two links, if you want to find out how they put the protecting your business, you check out courtvaleprotection.com. Get signed up for that. But here, this event, the Magnify Your Wealth Summit, like I said, May 17th, 18th, and 19th, before it gets too hot. Plus, it's in San Diego. It's great out there at the Dana.
And we're right on the water. It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing. Magnifyyourwealth.com. Come network with people. 100 people. He literally, Aaron doesn't do a very good job of bragging. It is the event to help protect your assets and keep your assets out of a sling as well too for you. So
can I tell you, last time, real quick, I know we need to wrap this up, but at the last event, I invited two friends who had nothing to sell at all to come amongst the lawyers and accountants and all. I had Tom Powell, who was running. He's just wound down. The whole time I've known him for like 14 years, he's been running these oil and gas funds. He had $3.5 billion under management. He's a brilliant fund manager, brilliant investor, does work all over the place. He's off right now skiing with, do you remember Franz Klammer, the Olympian?
Yeah.
He's out right now over in Austria skiing with Franz Klammer. He hangs out with Mark Cuban. He came as a favor. We didn't pay him. He's a friend. He's a client. We also had Michael Gorton come. He built a little $34 billion company called Teladoc, the largest telemedicine business in the world. His company invented VoIP. And you know what he did? I called and I said, would you be willing? He said, sure. He said, will you pay for my hotel room? And I said, absolutely. He said, I'll come. I said, you've got a new book, right? Let me buy a copy of your book for everybody as a thank you for coming. And he sat with people, a guy who built a $34 billion company and a bunch of other successful businesses, just to be there to help. Just be there to help, guys. Where do you get that? You could never get access to that guy.
Yeah.
But you did at Magnify Your Wealth. And it's always somebody like that.
Exactly.
So anyway, all right, brother. I appreciate being on.
Hey, thanks, Aaron, so much for coming on today and being part of the Asset Protection Masterclass, guys. Don't do it all yourself. Don't DIY. Get it DFY, done for you, with the help of Laughlin's professionals and their whole network of experts to help you sleep better at night, keep more of what you've done, and be able to spend more of what your hard work is doing. So go out there, take some action, everybody, and we'll see you all.